So I think you were just told right now the rest of the class meeting will be recorded. I just want to take a moment and I'll just go down the participant list and just if you'll unmute yourself and just tell us your name and where you're from, that would be great. So Annabelle, do you mind starting?
Sure. Well, my name is Annabelle, you can see there, and I'm original from Costa Rica. I'm Spanish, I speak Spanish, but I live in Canada. I'm married to a Canadian, and I have been married for 29 years. I have two sons, and they're adults, 25 and 23, and I'm just brave enough to, at my age, taking these classes because I wanted to learn and progress. So that's
Perfect.
everything.
Thank you so much, Annabelle. So great to meet you. All right, Anna, you're driving, but do you want to just tell us, I shouldn't keep saying your names because now you don't need to say your name, but tell us who you are and where you're from.
I am Anna. I currently live in Nebraska. I am married to Air Force Major. So we are actually getting ready to move to Germany.
That's right.
So I am glad that this course will be over before that all crazy happens.
Well, good luck on the move. I was raised in the Air Force too, so wonderful. All right, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan, and I live in Tooele, Utah, and have 4 kids and been married to my husband for 14 and a half years.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tooele. All right, let's see. I have Sister Coombs next on my participant list.
Hi, I'm sorry. My name is Jean.
Jean, I was going to say, I think it's Jean, but
it is. My husband and I have service missionary callings, and so I have to leave my name as Sister Coombs.
That is just fine.
But so I apologize for that. My husband and I have 4 children, 3 living, and we live in Zebulon, North Carolina.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. And let's see, Christine.
I hope I'm the only Christine in the class.
I think you are.
Okay. So my name is Chris Bushman, and we live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have 5 kids, and like a couple other, like Annabelle said, I'm crazy enough to go back to school with all 5 of those kids home. My husband and I were study buddies for a while because he just completed his degree.
Nice.
And that's what I wrote in the optional assignment this week because I couldn't think of anything else. I'm like, what have we done in the past 25
Your rituals years? We're studying together.
Yeah,
huh?
We're studying together. We have no life. So yeah, that's me. I'm trying to finish up these. I think I have like 10 more classes to go. So.
Oh, good for you. Wow. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Cynthia.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Burstyn. I live in North San Diego County in Vista, so near where you are.
Yeah.
And my husband and I have been married for 31 and a half years, and we've got 4 kids and 3 married, 1 on a mission in Texas. And we have 3 grandchildren, well, 2 and 1 on the way.
On the way. Oh, congratulations. And, yeah, not too far away neighbor. Nice to
hours away from being classified as a junior. And I actually started this 2.5 years ago with Pathway, and it was great. I got called to be the Relief Society president, and I thought, I really can't ask people to do things I'm not willing to do. So I started Pathway, and then I just haven't looked back and been released from that, but not from school. So
there you go. Well, what a great decision. And we're glad to have you here. All right, let's see. Gwen. Hi there. Gwen, do you want, there you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, my internet is not very stable.
That's okay.
My name is Gwen Wood. I live in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State. and I've been married 28 years, I think, and we have 4 kids.
Wonderful. So nice to meet you. Jamie.
Hello, I am Jamie. I am originally from Alaska, born and raised, and then met my husband actually at BYU, Idaho, and we have 4 kids and love it here.
Wonderful. So where are you now? Sorry.
In Burley, Idaho.
Burley, Idaho. Okay, yeah. I'm headed to Kenai, 3rd week of June. Stay for a week, so.
You will love it. June's a
Yeah.
great time. It's not nearly as rainy as August.
Okay, good to know. All right, thank you. Jeff, hi there.
Hi guys, I'm Jeff Curtis. I am at BYU, Idaho. I'm from Maine. I am single.
So nice to meet you. Thank you. Long way from home, huh, Jeff?
Yeah.
Getting used to it. Pleasure to meet you. All right, Liz. Where is Liz? There she is. Elizabeth, yeah.
I'm Elizabeth, and I live in Alpine, Utah. I have 4 children, and I've been divorced now for 10 years. I was married for 16 years.
All right, pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Alpine's a beautiful, I started my student teaching way back at BYU Provo 30 some years ago in Alpine Elementary. So it's a
yeah.
great city.
It's a great city.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. My participant list keeps changing. I don't know. It's like it's playing a joke on me. So Sophie, let's go to you.
I'm Sophie. I live in Montana and I too am single.
All right. Nice to meet you. And Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Simpson and I live in Round Rock, Texas. It's about 15 minutes out of Austin.
Okay.
And I've been married 24 years. We have 4 children. Our oldest is a student at BYU, Idaho on campus. And our second oldest just finally got to Rome, Italy on her mission after waiting for COVID. So yeah,
Wonderful.
she's got about a year left.
Okay.
And then we have one in high school and one in middle school. So 3 girls and 1 boy. And yeah, that's us.
And are you going to go to Rome when she's finished?
We're thinking about it. Her older sister served in the Milan mission. So we
Okay.
kind of think we kind of have to.
Yeah, you could hit both. Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved Rome. Wonderful. I'm sure she's going to have a great experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then forgive me, I should know your name by looking at your face, but it just reads Member Basic. So tell us your name.
Sorry about that. My name is Brenton Klepfer. I don't know why Zoom does that, but it does it ever since I logged in with my school account. Anyways, I am from Burley, Rupert, Idaho, and to Jamie, is your sister Holly?
That's my husband's cousin's wife. Yep.
Oh, husband's cousin's wife. Okay, so
Long
distant.
story. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So, yeah, there's some relation there, kind of distant, but I am single as a Pringle, and I decided to take this class because I love or I want to be a better spouse and a better priesthood holder.
Oh, those are great goals. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I think that's every. Did I miss anybody? I don't want to have missed anybody. I think I got us. All right. And as I said, I'm Sister Stephanie Hall, and we live right now in Chula Vista. I think we'll retire here. This is a good place. We're down in very southern San Diego County. We are 8 miles from the border with Mexico, near Tijuana. So, but we love it here. All right, we are going to go ahead and begin. I am going to share the screen and bring up a presentation. Okay. Let me try this and see. Okay, there we go. Are you seeing a PowerPoint presentation? Yes, okay. And this is, sorry, didn't have it set where we wanted it. So first of all, I just want to thank any of you that submitted questions. Sometimes I get no questions, and so I do kind of a lesson presentation. I got many questions this time, so I think we're going to use most of our time just to go through those questions. And I love receiving questions because it gives me the opportunity to do some research and find resources, and hopefully people in the class, I really want you to jump in and share your thoughts and ideas. So here is a question. I always address the questions anonymously so that we can feel open about, offering the questions, and then hopefully they are helpful for you. So here was the question, and this one sent me to doing some research. So, and I'm looking forward to hear what everybody else has to say. If the idea that there is no eternal soulmate is highly discouraged in the church, then how can my spiritual children unborn look like me and my wife if I'm not married? So what they're saying is, if we don't have this one predetermined soulmate, why is it that when we meet our spouse and we get married, our children come looking like us? Wouldn't I be destined to marry my future children's mother? So really great question. And so I had to do some thinking and some praying and some pondering. And I found this scripture, and I think it kind of helps me in understanding what our pre-existence was like. What were we like? When you do research, you'll hear that we were spirit children. You'll also hear the word intelligences. So, and I always like to say some of this is above my pay grade. So I'm just going to share what I have learned, not speak from my own knowledge of the gospel. Now the Lord had shown unto me, Abraham, the intelligences, that were organized before the world was. And among all these, there were many of the noble and great ones. And God saw these souls, that they were good. And he stood in the midst of them. And he said, these I will make my rulers, for he stood among those that were spirits. And he saw that they were good. And he said unto me, Abraham, thou art one of them. Thou wast chosen before thou wast born. So there's a couple of keys in here that helped me kind of figure out, why is it that I look like my mom and dad if they weren't predestined to be together? And for me, it's because we were not bodies. We did not have physical bodies in the pre-existence. We are taught here that we were spirits and we were intelligences, but nowhere in any of the reading did it talk about us having a body, a physical body. And so for me, my understanding is we were intelligences, we were spirits, we had our spirit and our nature and personality. However, we didn't yet have that physical body, which is granted to those who made the choice to come to this earth and live Heavenly Father's plan. And at that point, because of who our biological parents are, now we gain this biological body that, because of genetics and DNA, we look like our parents. I'd love to hear what anybody else has to say. Any thoughts that came to you? So just feel free, unmute yourself and jump in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think what we really don't know anything much about the spirit body, like what it looks like. So I would say, there's a lot of, I think often in the church, people focus on one lens. They focus on the spiritual side of it, but they don't focus on the science side of it. And spiritual and science go together like a pair of glasses. And God says everything that's temporal is also spiritual, right? So I think a lot of the times, we focus just on the spiritual aspect in the church, but the science part of it is also part of the gospel. You don't just separate them. And so your child will look like, your child's going to look like you and your spouse because the genetics that are involved with it, they gain your genes. So if you both green eyes, your child's gonna have green eyes. If you both have blonde hair, your child's gonna have blonde hair. I mean, there's a lot more going on than just spiritual
Right.
elements.
Thank you, Jeff. And I think the key here is to reassure us that we aren't out here looking for one person, because that would mean like the odds are really against us in finding that one person, right? So I think it's helping whoever asked this question to have that peace of mind that the physical appearance of your children will come once you choose that spouse. Then it'll be a combination of the two of you. That hasn't been determined yet. So, and I have read quotes from prophets that talk about, as long as you have a faithful male member of the church and a faithful female member of the church, they theoretically could be married. And if they were living the gospel fully, they would have a happy and healthy marriage. Now, of course, we have likes and dislikes, and we have our own core beliefs and our own personalities that we're searching for someone that feels like a good fit. But I have heard that mentioned before, that if we were truly committed to the gospel and living the gospel, those two people could come together and have a very happy, healthy marriage. Any other thoughts on this? But I do agree that there is nothing that is predetermined, that it's out of our hands and we have to find that one soulmate. So I appreciate the thoughtful question. All right. These two to me seem to go together, so I put them together. I have noticed that I fall into the trap of the power of least interest. How do I keep myself from becoming uninterested once I know that someone likes me? So this sounds like somebody who is single, who is, maybe dating and meeting people and falling into the place where once they meet them and they know that they like them, they're not really interested anymore. So how do we overcome that? So think about that for a minute. Here's another question. Often I find myself just not really caring enough to get into a relationship. I appreciate the honesty. Like I want to love someone and they love me, but I just don't have the desire to put in the effort to love someone. And this is what caught my attention when I have been burned so many times in the past. And so what I'm feeling is, what I'm sensing is that past experiences have made it so that dating is not something that's been enjoyable. And so how do we overcome that? And I think there's a lot of honesty here, and that would be hard. So I just want to, normalize that. I think that's very honest. Anybody have a comment or a thought to go with this?
So, Sister Hull, one of my callings is being the young single adults representative for our family ward. And I'm like a chain link to the YSA ward.
Oh,
and
I like that.
Young single adults are like this. They struggle with this. The ones that we've talked to, my husband and I, it's a combined calling with the HIB. And the power of least interest, okay. I've seen that in plenty of the youth that are in our area. And we tell them, go enjoy your hobbies. Go enjoy your hobby. And if you don't have one, go experience one. If it's fishing, go take a class on fishing. If it's painting, go find one. And, it'll help you meet new people. And then it'll help you build relationships within those hobbies, like your question two, to find friends. It's not necessarily that you have to stay in the church to find friends, because we all have friends outside of the church, and we all have friends that are like our exercise friend and our computer nerd friend and our shopping buddy friend. But okay, so come and meet new people. Find something that you enjoy and go do it. And invite one of your school friends or invite one of your church friends. My husband and I, we have 3 young adults, and they struggle with this because their hobbies are not the ones that typically are the Mormon ones or the ones that the Mormon girls like. They like shooting things and blowing things up. They're a bunch of
So going out there and still engaging in your own pursuits, your own passions, and meet people, friends of, same-sex friends to have as friends, and then opposite sex
Yeah.
friends can, possibly become someone you'd be interested in dating. I really like that. Appreciate that input. What I found here was an article on the church's website. And I'll put the link in the announcement that's going to go with the recording here, but it's called 4 Reasons You're Not Progressing in Dating or Relationships. And it's actually like a blog that was written, but it's on the church's website. And it just talks about things that we might be doing to ourselves that are making the dating less than enjoyable or more difficult. And the reason I like it, because it's focused on us. And one of the things I hope you're learning from this class, and any of us that have been through therapy, we learn we cannot change anybody except ourselves. So I would love to change the dating pool out there and make them all, wonderful, really healthy, people that are great to engage with, but we can't. So what can I do? I can change myself and my perspective and my attitude and my focus. And that in turn will affect the way I interact with people. So one thing is, when you read this article that's mentioned is, we put a lot of shoulds on ourselves and on other people. You might call these unrealistic expectations. But if we do a lot of should, you should treat me this way, or I should be able to do this. We're putting pressure on ourselves, and then we put pressure on other people, and rarely will us or other people live up to those expectations. So anytime you hear like a should coming out, you're going to want to shut that down and just kind of give yourself a chance and give other people a chance. So this goes over 4 reasons. I don't know if anybody else has a comment about this. I know, I'm sure dating, I can't imagine dating in today's world. It's very different with social media, and it's been 35 years since I dated. So, I date my husband all the time, but date a new person and have to go through that meeting phase and all of that. So there are resources on the church's website, so I do want to direct you there for singles. And one of the items that came up right on the home screen had to do with singles. And so I just refer you there for other resources. Anybody else?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, Annabelle.
I have my youngest son. He's 23. Well, he's still very young, but he came home from his mission, and I guess he fell in love with this girl, and he thought it was going to be the one. And I guess he had kind of like a hard experience. And it's still, and I think in a way kind of affected him, because he expected the whole, like, come home like everybody else and get married as soon as, and he had that belief that everything will be as well. He was expecting it, I guess, but it didn't. And for a while, this is a couple of years, and I noticed that this is kind of affected him. Like, and here, like when somebody, like, he doesn't want to date anybody, he doesn't want to do much out there with girls, and it kind of scares me. I don't know if it's maybe the pandemic, but I think sometimes it's fear for broken heart, or from, they don't want another experience like that happens. And like, I don't know how to help him. And I like all the things that I've been listening, because like you just said, Sister Holt, that you should do this, and you should, I've been there telling him, but it's no good. Like you said, I should not, because they don't like that. And sometimes maybe they just need a time to heal.
Right.
And then eventually they'll come, because I think it's more like, a time to heal, and eventually they meet somebody in the process. But I don't know, I wish I can really find a way to help him.
Right, I appreciate that. And Annabelle, I'll find there's a resource, one full issue of what used to be the Ensign was dedicated to singles. And I think it was in 2019, it was before the pandemic, but I have that resource in another one of my presentations. So I'll include that as well. So they can go back digitally and read through. All the articles were focused on singles and all kinds of issues and concerns that a single would somebody who's single would experience. I like that you focused on fear, and I think it's important to normalize that and to recognize that it could be fearful. And especially after a pandemic, as you mentioned, I think that
Yes.
really has affected a lot of us. So, but I wish you the best with that. And I like your idea of giving him some time to heal. I think
Yes.
that's healthy.
Thank you.
thing.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I think
What
Cynthia
steps-
has her hand raised.
Oh, Cynthia, thank you. I'll go back right there. Yes, please.
I just was gonna say that I have 4 children, 3 of them are married. One of my third child, the first 2 met their spouses early on and got married early on. In fact, Liz, I'm from Alpine, Utah before we moved to San Diego. 3 of my kids graduated from Lone Peak High School. But my third child, he actually went on a mission and he had a girlfriend, before he left. And she went on a mission actually here to Carlsbad, and he went on a mission to Armenia. And
Wow.
they had 2 very different mission experiences. And when they got back from their missions, they had nothing in common anymore, and he actually came back from his mission with PTSD because it's just such a dark, horrible place in Armenia. And he witnessed some pretty traumatic things, and we were really worried about him. And he got some help and things. But the thing that for him that was good for him was to just not date for a little bit when he got back. He concentrated on school, and people would tease him because, oh, you're about ready to graduate this year and you're still not married. And we just didn't push it with him or anything. And he actually met a girl on the Mutual app, and they got married in January, and they're doing really well. But it's just,
I'm glad
I
to
think
hear
it's an
that.
individual thing. And I think it would have been detrimental for him to have really tried to rush in and find, his eternal companion and everything, and do what was expected. I think he needed some time to just kind of heal and get his head together and, get back
Time for
into
himself.
where he needed to be again, and things. And so I think there really is no timeline, and you just have to. I think their marriage is going to be blessed because he took the time and was able to get back into things on his time frame, and accomplish some things in the meantime. And
It
so I
sounds
think
like
it's
it.
important not to
Yeah.
put everybody in the same box of everybody's alike, because they're not
Right.
alike. People get married at different times.
I agree with you. And thank you for sharing that personal experience, and glad to hear that he's doing well. I like the idea of there is no timeline. And again, that's a should that we put on ourselves, or we feel that others are putting on us. And so I understand the counsel that missionaries are given when they leave to go home and to date and to find a spouse, but that timeline, we can't determine that. And so I do think sometimes taking care of you is, the half empty pitcher can't, fill other people. So we need to fill ourselves up to be able to do that. Thank you. All right, switching gears here. This is for a married couple. What steps should a couple take if they have come to the point where they aren't friends or even really like each other anymore for the most part? This was referring to John Gottman's suggestions that when there are issues in the marriage, go back to building the friendship. And so this student has said, what if, we don't feel like friends? Of course, husband and wife may still care for their partner and want the marriage to work, but find themselves where they are no longer friends or have changed so much that they don't really like who their spouse has become. Where should they start to rebuild that friendship, and how do they do that? So I just want to share one technique that marriage counselors, and if anybody's been to marriage counseling, maybe you experience this. But one thing that they like to have you do is tell your story, tell your love story. How did you meet? And they want to take you back to that time when you were dating and courting and maybe engaged, and try to have you, through retelling your story, to actually re-experience whatever it was that brought you together, because something did bring you together. So there was something about your spouse that you loved, you were attracted to, and that you enjoyed. And so it really is about rekindling that and trying to tap into that. And I think it's very understandable. Life can be hard. There's a lot of hard things that people go through individually and as a couple. So it's understandable that your spouse may change, but it really is about not just here, but eternity and where they are on that path. And we might be looking at them at this point on the path, and we may not, quote unquote, like what we see, but how can we look deeper and look further and kind of look like our Heavenly Father would look, and try to find those things about our spouse. This is not a church website. I always like to make sure if I'm sharing something, but it sounded Christian based to me. It sounded faith based, but it is about building friendship in marriage. And so I will share that resource as well. There are things that we can do to pick new hobbies together, to just find quiet time to just be with our spouse outside of stress in life. The Rituals Week is a great week to learn about how to implement some of those meaningful connections that do not need to be big. They do not need to be expensive for us to kind of reconnect on that emotional level. Does anybody else want to share something about this question?
For me personally, I deal with anxiety and stress, and so sometimes I find myself, I do get distant or uninterested in the relationship, but often it's because I'm not looking at myself. I need to reflect that, hey, something's going on with me. Let me address that, and then everything else kind of seem like it falls back into place. But I also have to verbalize with my spouse that, hey, I'm going through cuckoo loco land right now. And so just give me some space. I'll get there. It's not personal. I love you, but right now
this is what's
don't
going
love
on.
myself.
Right.
So kind of thing. So I think sometimes we forget that sometimes it's a reflection on ourselves, and that we have something maybe deeper in with ourselves. It's not the other person, or it's not necessarily your marriage. It's just you.
It's you. So, and I really appreciate that. It's kind of that idea of sometimes we're focused on our spouse and why am I not happy? And I really appreciate the reminder that first we need to start with increased insight. We need to tune into us and what's going on for us, and that increased self-awareness. And then you need to communicate that, because just like the ESP myth, we can't expect our spouse to just tune in and know that we're going through something. It's okay to reflect that, to say that, and to ask for whatever it is you need, whether it's help from them, space from them, but letting them in, I like that, on what's going on for you, rather than they can, create mentally lots of things that could be going on. So I think that's really helpful. Anyone else?
I just had a thought. When you're dating, you put your best foot forward, and I was so brave when we were dating. I would try just about anything. And now that I'm more comfortable, and we've been married for a few years, I have no problem telling my husband, no, I don't want to do that. That does not sound fun. I just don't want to. So with the friendship thing, I think you have to be willing to try things that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone. Obviously, I'm scared of heights. I would never go skydiving, so that's not something I'm going to agree to.
Off the table.
Yeah, that's completely off the table. But just being willing to try things together that maybe your spouse enjoys, or something that you've never done together, to build that friendship. Kind of have experiences that are you know, reflective of when you're first dating, just kind of everything is that new experience again to build your friendship back up.
That's great. I love that. And that's, I'm sure a couple of those ideas are in there in this blog. So encourage you to reach out to that. Thanks, Jamie, for sharing. All right. In class, so this is the anger is a choice. When we talked about dealing with anger in week 4, we learned that the expression of anger is wrong. Are there any healthy ways to express or release it? And they continued to go on and talk about certain types of like venting therapy. I can remember when I first started doing therapy with children, the therapist I was shadowing, she would actually have a pillow. And when the kiddos were angry or upset, she'd say, go over and punch the pillow, you know, and I was researching and going back and remembered that this venting theory, or the theory of catharsis that we experience from venting, actually came from Sigmund Freud. And so it's, you know, it's been around for a while. However, and I think I included, since like the 1950s, they've been researching this, like, does venting your anger and expressing it decrease anger? And actually what researchers have found repeatedly is venting anger makes us feel angry. So punching a pillow does not get out your anger. It actually increases your anger. So acting on anger results in more anger. So the question then is, what do we do? How do we deal when we're, if it's us, or if it's a child, or if it's a spouse that gets angry? So we want to consider relaxation techniques. So any of us who have done yoga, you can use the yoga breathing, you can drink a cold drink, you can sit in a darker room with your eyes closed. So anything that's going to help bring the temperature down. Distraction. So instead of focusing on the anger, I'm going to do something that takes my mind off whatever that trigger was. So if you like to exercise as a distraction, that's great. If you paint, if you listen to music, you can have a playlist that calms you down. If you like to cook, if you like to eat, but something that distracts you from that event that triggered the anger. And then finally, another suggestion is reframing the problem. So if you're angry about, you know, a coworker, and this coworker is, you know, always making my life so miserable, then we want to reframe the problem. What could I be doing that could be creating this hostile, you know, work relationship? And what could I do that could flip this around and change this? So another idea of reframing is like, if you lost your job, instead of this being the worst day of your life, you could say, wow, this is the greatest opportunity I've ever had. You know, now I can search for a better job and find something that I really enjoy. So it's just that idea of reframing, not telling yourself how horrible and awful something is. Any other comments on anger, expressing anger, managing anger that you found helpful?
I know that, oh, I'm sorry.
Who was that? Sorry, I cut someone off.
Oh, I was like to say, but she wants to, Sister Combs wants to say something. So you go ahead.
Sister
No,
Combs.
I was just going to say that my husband has this principle. He served as a bishop for 6 years and high council, and he's done a lot of counseling in this area. And he really believes that, and he'll say, anger is a choice. You can choose to be angry, and you can choose not to. Don't let someone have that much control over you. You know, and why are you letting somebody control your emotions instead of you controlling your emotions? And it's one of the things he's always done. If he gets upset, he just walks away and takes a breath, you know. But I think that when we realize that anger really is a choice that we're making, and we're letting someone else control how we feel, then we kind of get, it makes it easier to control it, I think.
Absolutely. I love that counsel. And my husband always says, you're giving them the power. You've just given someone all this power over, look at what it's doing to you, whether it's someone in the car or someone at a store or whatever the case. So kind of has that same philosophy. Annabelle.
Well, I was just gonna say exactly what she said about that letting other people act upon you need to have control. But I guess when people have those kind of problems that it's hard for them to control their temper, one thing that I do, not just with that, but when I have a bad day at work, that I don't say anything, but I keep them inside myself. What I do is usually I come home and I tell my husband, okay, we'll go for a walk as we usually would do. And that really helps. And I kind of review with my husband. I said, this and this happened today. And that completely helped me to release that feeling of whatever it is that upset me. And then I can go to sleep, relax. But if I don't, and if something is bothering me, it kind of bothers me, I go to bed and I can't sleep. But for, being angry or things like that, I think that could help too. Like, I mean, I do this for myself when I'm upset about something. But I think it might help for, being angry. So maybe
Absolutely.
to go for a walk, I think it's a good thing, even if, if you don't have anybody, just yourself, because it does really help us to release whatever
And you're releasing it in a constructive way by talking it out and, being able to, in therapy, you call that processing. So make sense of what's happened and how you can move past it. So I think that's really important. Brenton, sorry.
Yeah, so I've been in several other marriage and family study classes. And one of the things that another professor said that I really liked is sometimes you just need to tell your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, family member, whoever, okay, I just need to vent, and let them know that you're going to vent, because I know I really struggle with this in dating. I'm a very practical person. And when someone tells me their problems, I want to try to solve it. And they don't always want that.
Right.
Sometimes they just want to feel heard. And sometimes they just want to feel validated. And so what my professor said to do is just say, he had to come to an understanding with his wife that she just tells him, I just need to talk right now. I just need to vent. And so he listens, and he doesn't try solving her problems for her or how do I say it?
Yeah.
And that just kind of helps get that anger out.
I really appreciate that. Two things is letting your partner know, or the other person know, what it is that you are going to do and what you need. And then second is, if we do want to help, we can help through validating. Wow, that must be really hard for you. Wow, that must have been hard to go through that. So validating is really an important part of, accepting what someone has said. Perfect. Megan, you have a hand up?
Yeah, just one more, I guess it would go under distraction, is humor.
Yeah.
Oftentimes my kids get really angry, and so I just try and be like super silly, or put on like America's Funniest Home Videos or something. And that really does help just distract them away from their escalating anger. And then once they've calmed down, then we can like reframe the problem and like talk about what the issue was, and then talk about it once they're calm. And that seems to help.
Yeah, and your idea for humor is so important, because we can't experience two emotions at the same time. I can't be laughing and feeling angry, and humor is such a really important way to manage that. So thanks for sharing that. And then to go back and process it once we're calm, right? We don't want to try and reason with somebody who's angry. That's not the time to do that. So thanks. Jeff.
Yeah, so I think a phrase I heard, which is important to remember, and it's not that, anger, we all get angry, but I think it's important to remember that anger is like drinking poison, hoping you're going to kill the other person.
Yeah.
And it's kind of descriptive, but I think the thing is I think oftentimes when it comes to anger, we're taking something that is not, some things are serious, but I think because we're stressed, or because, the life pressures, we take something that really, if we weren't feeling the way we were, wouldn't be like the most important thing, right? And the problem is that when we feel that way, scientifically speak, I'm walking a fine line here, but there's a part of our brain called the hippocampus. And when we get angry, the logic part of our brain shuts down. And what's the implications of this? Well, when you become angry, you might want to walk away because when you're or something, because when you're in that mindset, you can't see clearly
Right.
until you get out of that mindset.
Right.
And so
And may say something or do something you regret. So good
yeah.
advice. Thank you. All right. There was a question about what tips we have for living with a spouse with a mental illness, such as depression or PTSD. I just wanted to share 2 resources. The first one is NAMI. It's the National Association of Mental Illness. And if you go there, there's all kinds of resources for mental illness, but part of those resources are support for family members of the person who is diagnosed. So it's really important. There are support groups. So if you have, let's say, a family member with bipolar disorder, there are support groups for parents and children of, people who have that disorder. So even if the identified person is not interested in therapy, the family members could attend therapy to learn how to cope and manage with, because they're experiencing that same mental illness. Not as personally, but they still experience that. The church has a lot of mental health resources. And when I went to this link, they were specifically for family members and for children of people that deal with mental health issues. So I just want to point that out to you. But I would say reach out for help for yourself. Find a support group, find a therapist that you can go and talk to get your own coping skills. And if your spouse can go with you, if the identified person with this disorder would go, that would even be better. But we can't make other people do things. So any comments or questions on living with a spouse with a mental illness? All right.
Sorry, I had my hand raised, but I don't know how to use
sorry.
that thing
I don't
anyways.
always get to see it. Yeah.
No, my spouse does not have the problem, but my family is chock full of just about anything medically in the book you can think of. It's there. But the best thing that we've all learned together as a family unit is the more you educate yourself about it, the more you'll find that you are a lot more compassionate and can empathize for that person, because a lot of mental illnesses, especially with somebody that's within our household, it becomes normal behavior. And so you sit there and say, well, you know what the expectations are, you know what the rules are, so why are you behaving this way? But we can't always know what blockage they're dealing with that day.
Right.
And so when we better educate ourselves, and like you said, also to get our own support group, then it's a lot easier to cope and manage. Just because you educate yourself does not mean that person wants to hear it and be like, oh, well, now you're a know-it-all and you just know me so well. Yeah. They still want to feel validated when they are going through a hard time.
Absolutely. I really like what you said, though. We can get education for ourselves so that we can empathize on a different level. So I think that is important, but you're right. We don't want to then come home and try and tell them what to do because we know so much. So, but education, psychoeducation is really important. Thank you. All right. And I had 3 different people ask for a recommended reading book list. So I've got a couple of things. This first one, again, this is not a church website, but it is if you've ever gone on LDS Living, it's a very church-friendly website. They had this 5 books that will strengthen your marriage. And I liked the list because they were about different topics. So some were just about marriage. One was, I didn't know Elder Robbins, in week 7, we're gonna see one of his talks, Love is a Choice. He actually wrote a book called Love is a Choice, and it's about marriage. So that one is mentioned here. There's also sexual intimacy. There's a book about that. So it has some different topics that all relate to marriage. One was 150 creative dating ideas. So it sounds kind of like a fun book. So you can check that out. And then what I did is I just went through and listed all the other books that are in our class that are mentioned. Some are like supplemental reading, or some like the Gottman book, we only read 1 chapter. So I just wanted to give you these titles. This week under sexual intimacy, Becoming One, Intimacy in Marriage, and Between Husband and Wife, Gospel Perspectives on Marital Intimacy. These are both used in our module this week. I'm going to skip down here. The Great Marriage Tune-Up, that was where the marriage myths assignment came from. We only read 1 chapter, but that would be a great book. Gottman, we read 1 chapter. The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. So reading the whole book, any of the Gottman books are great. And then Fighting for Your Marriage, Howard Markman, Scott Stanley, and Susan Bloomberg. This is where the speaker listener technique came from. Again, we only read 1 section, but that's the book. This one, I'm going to go back up to The Body Keeps the Score. This is about mental health. And so if, and you don't have to be married yet, it's not about marriage, it's about understanding what mental illness does to the body. It really relates to trauma, but I would say any of the psychological disorders that somebody is dealing with would relate to something in this book. So again, The Body Keeps the Score by Vander Kolk. So just want to share that. And I will list all of these again in the announcement that I'm going to post later tonight. Does anybody else have a good book that you say like, oh, I have to share the name of this book?
One that I recently read was How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk from, I forgot what class that was. And I realized that the majority of this class is married, but I took, I can't even remember. It was the preparation for marriage class.
Okay.
And the professor on the first day of school said, or first day of semester said, there are people that are single, there are people that are in relationships, and there are people that are married in this class. And he said, this book and this class will help every single one of them. And I did that class when I was on Zoom, and we actually follow that book as kind of our textbook. And I did that on a Zoom class during the pandemic, and my mom actually heard most of it, and it helped her understand a lot of her relationship with my dad and helped her understand her marriage a lot better too. So I highly recommend that book to anyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Brenton. And I will look that up to get the author, and I'll include that on the list as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, the author is John Van Epp, and it's not written by, he's not LDS, but every single principle in that book I completely agree with. And he's actually came and spoke at BYU Idaho several times.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great recommendation. All right. I think this is the last question. So it reads, many other religions offer a marriage prep course prior to a couple getting married. This is sort of a guided conversation covering many of the key components that they will begin to navigate as a married couple, from finances to balancing in-laws. Do you feel that it is the church's place for further marital prep, including more open and in-depth discussion about sexual relationships, or does it ultimately belong more to family and personal self-exploration? Great question. So I just wanted to share, and for this one, I'm going to stop the share And I want to, I think if I do this, I can share any of my tabs. So I just wanted to show, we actually do have some marriage courses. The manuals are found when you go to Gospel Library and go to audiences, and then you click on that and it'll have for marriage and family. So this one, marriage and family relations, and then strengthening marriage. These two are specifically, and then there's a strengthening the family. So these are actually classes that could be taught. It would depend on your ward and your area. If, you know, someone in the ward, like the Relief Society president or the Elders Quorum president, or they call somebody, a couple, to teach one of these classes. So they actually are written as lessons. And some of them, like communication is discussed. In the strengthening the family, we'd be talking about parenting. I'm not sure if finances are in either of these, but we then have the one for the money that could be brought in and taught with that, talking about financial goals and perspectives in marriage. So yes, I feel like the church has a wealth of information and we have a unique perspective on marriage. And so having one of these classes would be really helpful. If you're at a church school, you can take a marriage prep class. Brenton just mentioned one. Sometimes Institute will offer a marriage prep class, like they have a mission prep. But if you're in an area that this isn't happening, or it isn't available to you, then by all means, get a manual out and you could start self-educating or educating yourself, I guess is what I was going to say. But ideally, yes, I think it would be great to have one of these classes taught so that young couples, new couples, old couples could discuss these topics. Annabelle.
You know, I remember we did in our ward have marriage and family classes. This is like 10 years ago. I don't remember, but it was quite nice because they ask whoever wants to. So I guess my husband and I, we went, and it was another couples as well. And we went through some you know, problems or issues that we can discuss each other and how can we support and help in the relationship. So it was great. I mean, yes, they do have, and then this like 10 years ago, I don't remember that they doing it now, but I know they did it. Yeah, I think maybe one that was new or something, but I went through one of those classes. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing your experience. So again, reach out. You can ask a bishop, you can ask a stake president, or a branch president if that's a possibility, but it's a great idea. All right. I want to quickly, I just want to thank you for your thoughtful questions. I want to thank you for sharing your ideas, and hopefully these were helpful not only for the people who asked them, but for all of us to kind of reflect and think about that. What I'd like to do with the remainder of our time is, if it's okay, switch gears and just talk about the final week assignments and show you some examples. And I'll try to do this very quickly. I did need to correct, I sent out an email today. June 2nd is a Wednesday. That is our final day of the class. And so everything has to be completed and submitted by next Wednesday, so a week from tomorrow. So I apologize for having given an incorrect date. Let me stop sharing this and actually bring that up. Okay, are you seeing our Canvas course? Yes, okay, good. So for week 7, I think the first thing that's always on everybody's mind is the final exam, correct? And so one thing I want to tell you is please don't let that be a source of anxiety. The final exam is worth 10% of your grade, which is not a lot. So as long as you have read the assigned readings, you've looked at the PowerPoints, you've watched the videos, you're going to be prepared for the final, and you'll get a high enough score on the final that it will not impact your grade. All right, so I just want you to take heart with that. The important part is getting your computer ready for the final exam. So in week 6, we have a Proctorio. Where is that? I think it shows up under a quiz. Proctorio practice, I think is what it's called. Anyway, you need to go through those steps to download Proctorio. It's a software onto your computer. You have to authorize your computer to use that. So that's a 2-step process. And then you're going to go into the practice or Proctorio practice. It's a practice quiz with 1 question. And the question doesn't even have anything to do with marriage skills. It's just to test and see that Proctorio is working. Now, if you are asked for an access code, you have not downloaded Proctorio. There is no access code needed for the practice exam or the final exam. So if you're getting that question, it means something isn't right. And I'll refer you back to the announcements. I uploaded a Proctorio FAQ page, and all the information about Proctorio, anything that's in my head is on that paper. So contacting me is not gonna be very helpful. Go to that page. It has phone numbers, email addresses. You can live chat with someone to help you troubleshoot Proctorio. If you've exhausted everything and Proctorio still isn't working, then you can contact me and we'll see what we can do. But go to that page first. Any questions on the practice or the final exam? A couple of recommendations. Even if you've used Proctorio before, please do the practice. I had a student who refused to do it, and then she waited till 15 minutes before the final was closing and Proctorio wasn't working. And it just ended up being very stressful. So please do the practice this week, and then on the final exam, if a problem happens, that's fine. Reach out to me and we'll troubleshoot it and try to work it. Gwen, do you have a question about either of those?
I just have a comment. I took that practice test today, right before this, and just making a comment that the 4th question was a little confusing, because it said to click this link to view if you have questions, and then I clicked it because I thought that was what we were supposed to do, but you can't open other tabs in Proctorio. So it was just a little confusing, and I thought that I would mention that you just have to answer the first 3 questions and then submit it.
Okay, so I will bring that up. It may not be something BYU Idaho can do, but it'd be good to let Proctorio know that that's not. So it's question 4 on practice quiz. Thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. All right. So you'll do the final exam. I recommend not waiting until Wednesday at 11:45 p.m. I highly recommend doing it Monday or Tuesday, get it out of the way. So if there are problems, we have time to get you to Proctorio, to get you assistance, and to, I can delete the attempt on the final and we can try it again. But when you're emailing at 11:45 at night, right before the final closes, it makes it kind of stressful. So we can work that too, but I'd prefer to just, do it sooner so that you're relaxed and you're in a good place. So I would do it Monday or Tuesday. It's actually open right now. You could do it now if you want. So totally up to you. All right. I want to talk about the weekly note journal for week 7. This is your journal you've been keeping. For week 7, it's different though. So please read. I know we get on autopilot and just kind of do what we've always done. For week 7, you are not writing a journal entry. What you're doing is looking back at weeks 2 through 6, and you're going to reflect and evaluate and choose the one you think is your most meaningful. And you're going to copy that out of your journal and paste it onto a new Word document. And then you're going to write a response. It asks you a couple questions here. Write an explanation of why you feel that was your most meaningful journal entry. It says your explanation must be at least one paragraph, which is 4 to 6 sentences. It can be more. And then you're going to actually take the highlighter tool and you're going to highlight that explanation, or you're going to put a nice big heading on it that says explanation, so that it's easy for me to see this is the journal entry and this is the explanation. So let me bring up a sample so you can see what it looks like. Oh, it went over on. Are you seeing the journal entry? Can you see where it says week 2 note journal? I don't think we're seeing that. I'm going to stop the share. And I am going.
Yes, we could see. I could see it on my.
Oh, you could see it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because it went on my second screen, so I was a little worried there. Let's see. There it is. Okay, so here you can see that this person copied and pasted their week 2. They said that was my most meaningful. You know, they chose to use bullet points, whatever yours looks like. And if you write yours in a physical, like handwritten, feel free to take a photo and upload the JPEG, and then you can upload a Word doc about the explanation. So just to make it easy for you. And then notice here, they highlighted this in bright yellow so that I know this is their explanation that they've written in week 7, and this is the journal entry. Okay, any questions on that? We're good with that. And let me show you the last, which is the final exam. I'm sorry, the final essay. All right. And again, I direct you to the instructions for this and to the rubric. Really important to know, how am I going to be grading it? You are asked to choose 3 principles that you learned in this class. So what I like to do here is just ask, what's a principle that you would say you learned from taking this class? What's a marriage principle? Yes.
How to solve our problems before
Conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Conflict resolution.
Yeah, so we did that in week 5. And so you could put that as your first principle, conflict resolution. So here for letter A, you're going to use headings, and then you're going to use letters to organize each principle. So the first principle, you would put conflict resolution. For B, subsection B, now what you're going to do is you're going to write a paragraph explaining what conflict resolution is. This student did communication. So what is that principle? Describe it to us and make sure that you reference something in the course. So you could say in Gottman's book, or in the Anger is a Choice video, or, you know, you can reference something, but you need to show that you learned it from the course. You'll explain the principle. C is how you would apply that principle in marriage. You can use a personal example. You could talk hypothetically if you're not yet married. That's just fine too. And then the final topic, D, is why you feel that principle should be applied in marriage. So you're kind of evaluating, why is that an important principle? You're going to do that 3 times for 3 different principles. So again, I refer you to the class to choose something that you learned in the class that you would consider a principle. I'll give you an example of something that students were doing. They would use, they would say a principle is kindness. Like, you should be kind in marriage. Well, yes, that's true. However, was that something that was taught in the class and that they learned because they took this class? No. And so really that's something someone could write about, and they had nothing, it had nothing to do with the class. So please make sure that you are reflecting here what you've learned in the class that you're applying to marriage. Does that make sense? So you can just think of each week, what did we learn in each of the weeks? Each of those were at least one principle, sometimes 2 or 3. So just choose 3 that were most important to you, and you're going to write about it in the essay. The essay needs to be 3 pages. It's okay if you go over a little bit. And they are asking that when you reference something like in John Gottman's book, you want to put some type of a citation. So make sure the author's name is there, the title of the book is there. You don't want to just take a quote and plop it in your paper and not show where you got that from.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
About this? So, so we're doing it APA style. I get that. Do we need to have a title page?
Only if the instructions ask for it. I don't believe they ask for it.
They didn't ask for it in this one, so I just wanted to be clarified.
Right.
So we just have to
So-
do it just exactly like this.
Yes, and so when we say APA, what we're talking about is the font. So it needs to be Times New Roman 12-point font. You need to use double spacing. You need to use headings, and you need to use 1-inch margins.
Okay.
And then the final thing they do ask for are references, but even those, if they're not in APA format, that's fine. As long as you tell me the title of the work and the author. And if it was
Okay.
like a PowerPoint from the class, you could just say in the differences PowerPoint,
Okay.
just make sure you reference it somehow.
So we don't need to, so looking at this one, we don't need to indent or tab over for our,
Actually, you don't tab over in APA. Everything is justified to the 1-inch margin. So we don't ever want to
Okay.
indent in APA format.
okay, so I was confused because in my last class I took, they taught us how to do APA. They told us we had to indent if it wasn't abstract or it was like under a normal heading. So I did that.
Do you mean just indent like the first sentence?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they probably could have done that here, like right here and tab just that, but you don't
Yeah.
want to tab the whole paragraph.
No, I'm talking about the
Oh, yeah.
first sentence.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
I don't get so picky unless somebody like uses a weird font, or they'll use super big headings, or they'll tab way in. And what that does is it alters the length of the paper. So you don't have to write very much and you get a
Yeah.
3-page paper. So that's mainly what I'm concerned about, is that it's, those main APA. If you look on the rubric, it'll tell you what it's looking for under APA style. I want to say one more thing, and I'll put this in the week 7 announcement. Please do not overquote your paper. It's only a 3-page paper. I have had students turn in a paper that is 75% quoted material. I want to know what you've learned in the class. So it's okay to include a quote or 2, but when you turn it in and you see your Turnitin score up at the top, that little colored box, if it's yellow or red, you've quoted too much material, even if you cite it. I'd like to hear more what you have to say and what you've learned and what are your personal experiences, rather than just copying and pasting out of all of the material that you've read. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, so with that,
I have
just
a quick
want to,
question.
yes, please.
This is a really small thing, but A, B, C, and D are the, for the first one, but I'm doing this 3 times. Do I start back over at A, or
Yes.
do I go to E and F and G?
Start all the way over. So you're
Start back
going
over
to
at
use
A.
only A, B, C, D, and then you'll get your new principle, and that will be A, which basically is just the heading of what you're writing about, and B, C, and D. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I checked the chat. We did have one more book mentioned. That was The Anatomy of Peace. And And so I will include that on the resource list. And then 2 comments on self-reliance programs on budgeting and family finances, which is a great reminder. We do have those self-reliance classes. And I know our stake has been doing a mental health self-reliance class. I don't know if that's church-wide, but
It is. My
Great.
husband and I are self-reliance missionaries over
Oh, perfect.
our coordinating council. And we train the stakes to do it. And we're actually facilitating several emotional resilience classes. And
Perfect.
I recommend everybody take that. They're so amazing.
I have heard that. So
So
thank
amazing.
you, Jean. Great. So another resource there. So I'll include that as well. Well, that's all I have for you. If I'm going to go ahead and end, but if you have any questions or if you want clarification on other assignments, please stay and hang out. I will be here. But again, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules as parents and students and roommates and all the things that you have going on, your jobs, to be here tonight. So thank you so much. And for those watching the recording, I hope this is helpful, and reach out with email questions if there's something else, that you want clarification on. With that, I hope you guys have a great evening. Good luck in the rest of the class. And it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.